Atomic Heart just received its biggest update so far. Today we'll talk about the addition of New Game Plus, the previous updates I didn't have the chance to discuss, and the upcoming DLC that will release this summer. As always, you can find timestamps in the description for topics that interest you the most. First of all, let's talk about the New Game Plus system. Now once you go in the main menu, you will find a New Game Plus button which will display you a JoJo reference? When you begin the New Game Plus, you will immediately start the game after the introduction, which I find really nice. As a person who completed this game 4 times, the intro was getting quite boring. But what I don't like is the fact that cutscenes are still unskippable. Like, what? I'm playing New Game Plus, I've already seen them. Anyway, once you spawn in and open your inventory, you will realize that you got scammed. But in all seriousness, you have to visit Nora in order to get access to all of your equipment. Which, spoiler alert, was a very bad idea, because unlike your arsenal, the enhanced enemies of New Game Plus are present from the very beginning. We'll talk about them later, but what you should know is that they were designed to still pose a threat to you when you're at max level, but because of that, the game becomes excruciatingly hard during the first few minutes of gameplay. This difficulty is easily seen during the Black Vova boss fight, who you have to defeat in order to get access to Nora. This mini-boss becomes a real threat because he can literally one-shot you, which isn't what you normally expect from a New Game Plus run. In addition to this, your difficulty is locked at Armageddon, so you can't simply switch to easy mode to breeze through this boss fight. But once you get to Nora, you will finally get access to your inventory. And wait a second, where are all my guns? You see, here's another problem that was present in Atomic Heart since the very beginning, and it's that you can't choose on what character to play. In other normal games, you can load into your very first playthrough even if you've beaten the game lots of times. But in Atomic Heart, if you start a new game and play it for less than an hour, you wouldn't be able to load back to your previous playthrough. And if you are like me and you were doing a challenge run, which I still didn't release because people for some reason don't care about me being the first person in the world to complete the hardest challenge run in Atomic Heart, you would find out that your last playthrough is the one that the game uses to start a New Game Plus. Basically what I'm saying is that if Atomic Heart, just like any other game, had a window where you could choose what character you should play, or just have more than 12 save slots, this problem would be completely avoided. But enough complaining, let's talk about the good features of New Game Plus. As soon as you access Nora, you will immediately get access to all your blueprints, which means that you can craft or upgrade any weapons you want. But if you didn't unlock upgrade blueprints by completing polygons in your previous playthrough, you'll have to complete them during New Game Plus in order to actually get access to these upgrades. But if you 100%ed the game, you should be good. Because of that, you are obviously overpowered, as you can get access to any weapon from the very beginning of the game. And that's exactly why enemies now have a variety of special auras around them that make them way more powerful. Each enemy has a colored aura around them, and the color changes depending on the enemy buff. The first modifier has a purple color, and it's called Master of Elements. This is arguably the most annoying one because it makes enemies completely immune to your skills and cartridges. But the worst part is that your abilities don't just not deal damage to these enemies, but they straight up ignore them. This means if you use your mass telekinesis skill, you will immobilize every enemy except that one. I also noticed that for some reason this effect procs very often on Vovchiki that wield shock batons, which makes them harder to defeat, as if you watched my 100 Atomic Heart Facts video, you would remember that the mass telekinesis skill is their weak spot. Other enemies that are affected by this feature include regular types of lab technicians, mutants, and rotorbots. Wait, rotorbots? Are you insane? These things were already overpowered enough. In fact, the only way I can explain fighting these enemies is okay, I'm sorry, but this is the best explanation of Armageddon difficulty in this game. The second ability is called Daredevil and possesses the red color. The attack and movement speed of these enemies are sped up. Basically, now you have to pay more attention to these types of enemies, as you can't simply outrun them, as now they will really quickly catch up to you. And you'll need to be more careful while dodging, because they can hit you multiple times per second, which is really disruptive because now you have to readapt to their moveset and relearn the timing of their attacks. And of course, powerful mini-bosses like Rotorbots and Raffics will have this ability as well. The next buff aura is yellow and is named Body Armor. If the name didn't give it away, this feature gives enemies resistance to firearms. At least that's what's written when you scan them. But a more accurate description will be that this aura makes enemies bulletproof. And believe me, I tried killing them with guns. Also, as you can see on your screens, the only enemies that have this ability base their attacks on range. For example, every ranged laborer, every vatrushka and every sepucha will have this effect active. Even the ones in the background for some reason have this effect. This means you have to utilize melee weapons and skills in order to defeat them, which is very annoying because all these types of robots move very quickly and try to stay away from you as much as possible. So fighting these bots is now more annoying than ever. Another enemy ability is green and labeled Athlete. This gives robots and mutants the ability to knock you down no matter what attack they use. And if you're on low health, this gives enemies the ability to one-shot you. So you have to be extra careful when dodging simple attacks, as the real problem comes from the fact that many enemies have multi-attack combos that don't knock you down, but if all of them land, they will deal even more damage than the charge attacks. The balance here is that if you get hit by the first attack, you can easily dodge to avoid taking damage from the second or third hit. But with this buff, you have no second chance. It's either you dodge the combo entirely or you die. Now of course, when you're fighting a normal enemy, you can get out alive. But if it's a mini-boss that hits you, like a Raffic or a Black Vovchik, then you're most likely dead. The fifth enemy buff is the most lame out of all. It is orange and has the name Kamikaze, which is on its own self-explanatory. Once an enemy with this ability notices you, he will explode upon contact with you. Although in Atomic Heart this system is quite different, because unlike in every other game that has a suicider enemy where he dies from one hit and only tries to get close to you, in Atomic Heart the AI for these enemies is still the exact same. So the Kamikaze enemy will have the same health as a regular enemy and will be able to execute ranged attacks. But I still recommend that you simply let the robot explode in your face. Of course, this will deal damage, but this explosion will most likely kill nearby enemies and allow you to immediately get rid of a powerful mini-boss. And this feature can also cause some very scary moments. Oh, Jesus! Oh, when did this game become a horror game? The lightning rod is the pre-ultimate effect and has a light blue, almost turquoise color. The name of this enemy modifier can be a bit misleading, as instead of dealing electric damage to you, robots will drain your energy bar. And the amount of mana they will steal from you will depend on the type of attack. For example, a heavy move will eat your entire energy bar, but a regular attack will deplete only a fraction of it. But this doesn't mean you should neglect these enemies, as the most powerful guns in Atomic Heart use energy as their ammo, and thus one missed shot is enough to put you in a very vulnerable position. The final enemy ability is called the Translocator, and if you go and read the official patch notes on this effect, they will state that when approaching you, the enemy abruptly covers the distance, which is a straight up lie, because this buff gives your enemies the ability to literally teleport, and if this sounds broken to you, it's because it is. This ability can be used at any range and allows enemies to teleport behind you, making fighting large groups of tin cans even harder. Furthermore, enemies can execute this teleport every second or so, which makes their movement seem very random and unpredictable. It's as if they were using the new time warp feature from the DLC, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Overall, it's a very dangerous buff to basically any enemy, so I'm happy that already powerful enemies like rotorbots and engineers weren't affected by it. Overall, the New Game Plus update was amazing. Regular enemies are now something more than just a waste of ammo, and mini-bosses become real threats. One thing I should probably mention is that when I talk about mini-bosses, I talk about the Black Lab Technician and the Large Mutant, because these buffs do not affect reoccurring bosses like the belyash or plush, which is quite sad because it would have been very interesting to see regular bosses also have these abilities available. Normally here I was supposed to give more details and interesting facts I found about these auras, but I think that you all want me to talk about the upcoming DLC for Atomic Heart. If you remember, the developers have promised that there will be a total of 4 different story DLCs for Atomic Heart, and the first one will be released this summer, more precisely the 2nd of August. So right now let's talk about all the new weapons, enemies and skills that we can see in the trailer for this DLC. If you remember, in my previous Atomic Heart update video, I said that this spear weapon will be in the DLC as it was cut from the base game, and I was right. It is called Klusha, and not to repeat what I said in that previous video, I will just say that it will be a spear type weapon which will have increased range and an upgrade that will turn it into a guillotine. Now the second weapon is something new. It uses another type of ammo and looks more similar to some sort of minigun. But what's interesting is that its alt-fire uses energy to create this gigantic electric art. So we have a weapon that uses both energy and regular ammo, which I find quite cool. In terms of new enemies, we have the previously teased bead robots that will assemble themselves into a more powerful centipede-like enemy. It is also shown to us that an entire boss will be presented that consists only of these beads. But from what I saw in the trailer, I think this will be a one-time boss encounter and not the final stage of this enemy's evolution. Another quite interesting enemy are the mannequins. Now, from what we can see in the trailers, is that not only do they have their own moveset, but they can also use their own limbs as weapons. But what really caught my attention is that these mannequins can rebuild themselves. Now, because the DLC is not released yet, I am not sure how this system will work, but I would assume that it will be quite similar to the skeletons from Elden Ring that, if not damaged for a long period of time, will eventually resurrect. although it certainly makes me wonder if, just like the bees, they can interact with each other in order to become more stronger. We've talked about guns, enemies, now the only thing left are skills. For now we have info on only one single skill, which is named Technostasis, and from what we can see it will allow the player to slow down time to a crawl in a specific radius, while Nechayev himself still moves at a normal speed. Now in terms of upgrades for this ability, I think that we'll certainly get a upgrade that damages enemies while they are slowed down, and something that will increase the range of the skill, but otherwise I can't think of anything else. In terms of locations, it is quite hard to tell, but most of the gameplay will happen in the Mendeleev complex. Although one thing that really caught my eye during this trailer was this. And the reason why I was so interested in this clip was not because it's a really cool looking swamp area, but mostly because of the player's walk speed. You see, here is me simply walking in Atomic Heart. Now if you compare this to the footage that we have in the trailer, we can see that Nechayev in the trailer is moving significantly slower. Maybe I'm just overthinking this, but what if the goo that is located in the swamps will slow down the player's movement, obliging him to use the time control ability to gain some speed? But this is pure speculation, of course. But what is not speculation is the overall theme of this DLC, as it will mostly revolve around Nora's backstory and just how she came to be a talking fridge. Of course, we can also see Granny Xena's house flying towards us, which means that we will also get some info on that character as well. And we were promised another completely new character we haven't seen before. And we will apparently get paint jobs for Nora, which is cool, I guess. So that's it for today. When the DLC will be released, I will definitely make another video about it, so remember to like and subscribe to not miss that.